Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. The master with the Brahmo devotees. So it was an early hour of the morning, about 2 or 3 o'clock. The room was dark. Sri Ramakrishna was seated on his bed and now and then conversed with the devotees. Master, remember that daya, compassion, and maya, attachment, are two different things. Attachment means the feeling of minus towards one's relatives. It is the love one feels for one's parents, one's brother, one's sister, one's wife, and children. Compassion is the love one feels for all beings of the world. It is an attitude of equality. If you see anywhere an instance of compassion, as in Vidyasagar, know that it is due to the grace of God. Through compassion, one serves all beings. Maya also comes from God. Through Maya, God makes one serve one's relatives. But one thing should be remembered. Maya keeps us in ignorance and entangles us in the world, whereas Daya makes our hearts pure and gradually unties our bonds. So, we will find in some other context in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is indicating that there are two types of Maya. That Maya is something which is of God. God is the Mayadhish. He is the one who is the Lord of Maya. So though Maya belongs to him, he is not affected by Maya, but with the Maya, the world is ensnared. And that Maya has two aspects. In some other context we find, he says, the two aspects are avidya Maya and vidya Maya. The Maya which begets, which results in ignorance, which binds us more and more in ignorance. We get as if spirally we move downwards in the realm of ignorance. So that is avidya Maya. And vidya Maya, it is still the Maya. We are still in the bondage, but by resorting to that, we gradually move spirally upwards so that at last we can come out of the spell of Maya. So this avidya Maya and vidya Maya, this both are emanating from the divine. It is part of the divine. But one binds us, the other helps us to liberates us. So avidya Maya and vidya Maya. So here Sri Ramakrishna is indicating that the so-called Maya which we have, the sense of attachment which we have to our relatives, our friends, our own close circle, that is avidya Maya. That intensifies our ego, keeping us bound in me and mine, ahamta and mamata. That me is ahankara and mine is mamatva. So in this too, it keeps us bound. It as if it intensifies the ego. As we will find, Sri Ramakrishna indicates again and again in the Gospel that the only factor which has kept us bound is the sense of ego, the sense of this limited ego. The once we are beyond this ego, we get rid of this ego, we are liberated. So as that Sri Ramakrishna's nice way of saying it, we have repeated so many times. When he was asked, when shall I be free? His answer used to be, when I cease to be. That I is within the inverted comma, that when I, the sense of this limited individuality, cease to be, then you are free. So we will find that it's the idea that this is my house, my family, my son, my daughter, my parents. So as long as you find that your or our love, attachment is just bound by that, it is actually intensifying our sense of limited individuality. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that it is the cause of bondage. And daya, which is the compassion for all beings, it crosses the boundary of our limited sense of mamatva. So that helps in dissolving the ego. So that is Vidya Maya. Through the resorting to that, gradually we will attain liberation. So that's the two things which Sri Ramakrishna is distinguishing, that Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. We will find that Sri Ramakrishna has defined God in such a way that whether we are religious, and even if we are religious, whatever denominations we may belong to, and even if we are not religious, if we are atheist, then also we will find that the definition of God as has been defined by Swami Vivekananda cannot be denied by anyone. In one very simple sentence he has defined God. Unselfishness is God. Will any religion say that their God is selfish? No, his compassion is there for all beings. There is no hierarchy in his love. So that's the idea of the God which we find in all the religions, that his love, his grace is unbounded, is unconditional, non-hierarchical. There is no hierarchy in that. And even if the one who doesn't believe in any religion, but even an atheist will say, we don't believe in any religion, but to do good to others, yes, that we think as an ideal. If someone says that I just believe in my own good, we find that the society will say they are the most degraded type of humanity. Even the atheist, the person who is an atheist is still regarded by all others as a nice person, good person, ideal person. We find that unselfishness is manifested through his character. He doesn't believe in God, but he is unselfish. He is always ready to help others. There we find the ideal of humanity is being exemplified. And that ideal of unselfishness is God, what has been defined by Swami Vivekananda. What a wise definition. The more we get rid of our ego, the more we get established in the idea of our individuality, which speaks of only one existence. The one existence which is the only reality of which we may at the most say we are a part, or even if in Advaitic sense we are just identified with it. But ultimately we are that individual consciousness, of which we all are just the projection. If that's the thing which we believe, then the selfishness is bound to fall off. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say very nicely, that ego is just like the pot. There is only one undivided consciousness. It's just like the ocean, unbound ocean. And in an unbound ocean, the moment I immerse a pot, a very small quantity of that ocean water will enter into that pot. And now I say this is the water of the pot. It's the same ocean water. Not only that, because of the wall of the pot, the barrier, we'll find that the disturbance, that the turmoil, the waves of the ocean is in no way affecting the water inside, because that barrier is there. The more that barrier falls off, we will find that the water inside is being affected by the water outside. So what it speaks of? Empathy. The more our ego is crystallized, we will find that we are lesser and lesser empathetic. We don't feel for others. The more the ego is crystallized. All our so-called showing of sympathy becomes a duty. It doesn't come out from the heart. Because the more the ego is crystallized, you will find that in small children, where the ego is yet to be crystallized, their so-called sense of identity is diffused. They cannot identify themselves just with the body-mind complex. It takes time when the child is growing. Its consciousness is diffused. You will find that emotion is also very much as if filtering out from their body-mind complex. It is intermingling with everything. If they see someone getting affected, if the mother just feigns to be a bit depressed, feigns to be a bit, having this some sorrow, is miserable, and she just feigns, and you will find the child is affected. The child starts crying. If the children are playing together, one falls and just starts crying, the others all tend to get affected by it. They also start crying. So what it speaks of, the lesser is our ego, the more we relate with others. So you'll find that wherever the ego boundaries are less, we can easily relate to others. There are so many incidences when in the hostel, I still remember, that one of the students, while playing, was injured very badly. He had a fracture in his leg. And his parents from Northeast India, the school was in Bihar in those days, and from Northeast India, it was a residential school, so the students from all over India used to be admitted there, they used to study there. And the student whose leg was badly fractured, his mother immediately, that's the time when the phone call came. And she was asking that, how is my son? Now the student has fallen down and got injured. He was taken to the hospital, residential school hospital. But yet the authority was not aware what has happened. The news was yet to come to them. So the one who picked up the phone was totally ignorant about the fact that this student has got some injury. So the mother called and told that I am feeling that my son is not keeping well. Something has happened. And there's the one who was receiving the phone, he almost scolded. Just because you have some assumptions, you phone and just will be disturbing that way. And after just another half an hour, the news came to him, and the authority was surprised that such a link. And then, of course, again he called back and gave the news, and he was a bit that way. He just repented for the way he has behaved with her over the phone. What it speaks of, that whenever the love is there, our ego starts dissolving. This ego barrier falls off. We start thinking more of the other person. And then you will find that there is actually one consciousness. Somehow we relate. There are many such instances. Somehow we relate. And that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is also indicating. The more our ego barriers fall off, the mamatva, and the more we become spiritual, the more our heart becomes compassionate. It becomes full of empathy. There's a nice incident in the life of Swami Vivekananda. When Swami Vivekananda was a wandering monk, he was traveling all around India. He was yet to go to the West. And just by chance, another direct disciple, he met another direct disciple, Swami Turiyananda. He was also just wandering around India, about the other many places of India, and Swami Vivekananda was also wandering, and chance brought them together. And now the Hari Maharaj, Swami Turiyananda, as he was meeting his brother monk after a long time, Swami Vivekananda after a long time, so Swami Turiyananda asked that how your spiritual progress is going, is how are you progressing in your spirituality. And the answer of Swami Vivekananda is wonderful. What he told is interesting, that oh Hari Bhai, that Turiyanandaji's name, the nickname was Hari. So, oh Hari Bhai, I do not understand anything of your spirituality, but one thing I understand, that my heart has really started growing. It has started filling for everyone. That in this world, for each and every being, this heart fills. It has actually has started growing as if it fills for all. And that's the sign of spirituality. The more our ego dissolves, the more we start filling others for other. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating as Daya. Maya is just that tribal mentality, the filling the love only for the tribe, for my own people. And Daya is something which speaks of compassion for all. So even in the name of religion, you will find that old remnant of our regressed evolution, the evolution, if we have regressed back, that tribal mentality is something which is in our genes. Because when we were evolving, the tribe was something which used to give us strength, protect us. And that tribal mentality is still there as a living fossil in all the religions. We'll find it as a living fossil in all the religions. The religions have that tribal element. And the more the tribal element is there, the more you know it is Maya, it is no more Daya. Only those who belong to my faith, I have love for them. Beyond that, I'm even ready to cut his throat. What type of religion it is? So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. Daya is the thing which is love for all. It goes beyond all the barriers. So even in the life of Holy Mother, that unbound love which we find, there's a wonderful spiritual characteristic, that for a mother to love his children, there is no credit for it. Even the animals does it. To go beyond your biological relation, to love all, to have that motherly feeling for all, that's spirituality. That Holy Mother was never a biological mother. She never gave birth to any children as a biological. She was never, but she had that motherly feeling, universal motherly feeling for all. And that speaks of that spirituality. And that's being indicated by Sri Ramakrishna here. God cannot be realized without purity of heart. One receives the grace of God by subduing the passions, lust, anger, and greed. Then one sees God. I tried many things in order to conquer lust. So this is another very important thing that we find even in the Bible. That's one of that, the Beatitudes. What is that? Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. When Swami Vivekananda in the West was delivering lecture, so he used to quote this line of Jesus, one of these Beatitudes. He used to quote and say that if all the religion gets extinct, it becomes extinct, and again the new a new civilization develops. With that, the religion starts developing, and you will find if only this one sentence somehow remains, that blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. That one sentence is enough for all the religions again to come, again to evolve. So because that's the basic thing of religion. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is also indicating. God cannot be realized without purity of heart. One receives the grace of God by subduing the passions, lust, anger, and greed. It is not that God's love is conditional. That first you subdue your passions, lust, anger, greed, and then God will be pleased with you. God's grace is always there. The passions, the lust, anger, and greed are something with which we are holding onto this tree called life. This samsara is like a tree. We are holding onto the branches of this tree. Just to fall from a tree, there is no need for any effort. You need not have to give any effort. You just leave the hold and the gravity pulls you down. There's no need for any effort to fall from the tree. You just leave the hold. Just to let go is necessary. So in spiritual life also, we never attain God. We can never attain God. We just have to let go. The grace is always, the wind of grace is always blowing. It is always pulling us to our divine nature, to our spiritual nature. But why we are not carried by that grace? Because we are holding onto this tree of samsara, the branches of samsara. How we are holding? This lust, anger, greed. These are the things which is constantly forcing us to hold onto this branch of the tree. If we can get rid of them, the lust, anger, greed, that let go ensues. The grace which is always there, it starts working on us. Just the way to fall, you have no need, there is no need for effort. Here also there is no need for any effort. The moment we can get rid of the hold of this tree of samsara, by getting rid of lust, anger and greed, God's grace is, the plan of the universe is such, the grace will take us to our divine identity, will make us identified with our divine identity. We will be in communion with the divine. So that's Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that one receives the grace of God. The grace is always there. When he receives it, when it really starts acting on it, by subduing the passions, lust, anger, greed, that results in that let go. And then the grace can act on you. Then one sees God. I tried many things in order to conquer lust. To fall, that's the thing. When I was 10 or 11 years old and lived at Kamarpukur, I first experienced samadhi. As I was passing through a paddy field, I saw something and was overwhelmed. There are certain characteristics of God vision. One sees light, feels joy, and experiences the upsurge of a great current in one's chest, like the bursting of a rocket. So when the mind is pure, so this joy is something which Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of, is already there. This joy is not something which we are cultivating. The essence of our being is Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa. It is Sat Swarupa, Chit Swarupa, Ananda Swarupa. What it means? The core of our being, which is divine, is Sat Swarupa. The word Sat in Sanskrit means that which is always existing, without any transformation. In the past, in the present, in the future. It continues to exist without any transformation. As the Purana Purusha, Pura api navaiva, ever aging, never old. Just in the eternal present, it exists. That is Sat. So am I Sat? I may feel that I am a reality. But how can you be reality? Just like any other projection, I also, as a psychophysical entity, I started existing at certain point of time. Constantly I am going through certain sort of changes. Shada Vikara, the 6 changes. Jayate, Asti, Vardhate, Viparinamate, Apakshyate, Nasti. We are born, we exist, we start growing in our childhood days, and then the middle age comes, and then the decay process starts, and at last death is there. So we are constantly going through the changes until we cease to exist as a psychophysical existence. So it's just like any projection. When through a projector I am projecting something on the screen, I don't feel it is real because I know it is there for some time. As long as the projection is there, it is there. The moment the projection is not, it's not there. So we also like projections that way. Anything which is flow is like projection. Is there something which is eternal, which is behind these projections of this eternal? That the scripture is asserting. Yes, the essence of your being is Sat. It is always there. It was, it is, it will be. It is the Trikal Avadhita Satya. The truth which is Trikal Avadhita. Means Avadhita means uninterrupted. Trikal means 3 phases of time. The one whose existence is never restricted by any phase of time, past, present and future. That is Sat. So now with our scientific knowledge, the shallow scientific knowledge, we may feel, yeah, it's correct. Even in our school, the primary education, from our primary school only we have learned, even in the so-called secondary education, that in this world nothing is destroyed. Matter and energy is interconvertible. If not as matter, as energy we exist, but after all it is inert. Whether it is energy or matter, it is inert. So that Sat, when you say that the essence is Sat, we will say, yeah, at last, everything is matter or energy which cannot be destroyed, and somehow they have conglomerated accidentally to have created this life on earth, which is this life, which is consciousness. This consciousness is a byproduct of the conglomeration of matter. That's what even now the science generally is constantly trying to do that. It is trying to prove that, though they haven't proven till now. But they're trying, constantly they're trying to prove that. All this artificial intelligence, everything, all the research behind that, that's the main concept, that somehow we can generate consciousness. So here again Vedanta is asserting, no, the ultimate reality, which is Sat Swarup, is not something inert, is not something which is Jada. It is Chit, consciousness. It is a consciousness which is being projected as this universe. The so-called, the phenomenal existence, the matter, is actually nothing. It is consciousness. What the word nothing means? No thing. It is not a thing, but it is consciousness. So nothing means no thing, but doesn't mean void. It is no thing. It is not a matter, but it is consciousness. The consciousness is appearing as this world of some tangible reality. They say that science generally tend to say that consciousness is an epiphenomenon. That world is a phenomenon. It's something real. It exists, and consciousness is an epiphenomenon. It's a product of that. But Vedanta says, no, it's just the opposite. Consciousness is the only phenomenon. In the world, whatever you see is the epiphenomenon. So the Sat Swarupata, which is the core of your existence, is again Chit. It is consciousness. And then that consciousness again is Ananda Swarupa. That now even somehow we may get convinced that, yeah, okay, I am Sat Swarup, I am Chit Swarup. And then I may feel dejected. That by being conscious about my existence, it's full of sorrow. There is sometimes just the happiness will be there just for a moment, and again we will be in a dejection, we will be in a monotonous state, and we are as if in this flux, sometimes like we are in the crest of the wave, we are happy, and again we are dejected. This flow goes on. So Vedanta says no, that this duality is as long as we are identified with the body-mind complex. Beyond that, when I am established with myself, it is just that tranquility, that bliss, which is beyond the duality of joy and sorrow. Ananda Swarupata. So that is something, the core of my being. So why don't we realize that? Because our mind is constantly polluted by the desires, by all this strifes, tensions, turmoils, all the constantly it's going on. So our mind is constantly full of all those desires, samskaras, in the form of waves. As long as the waves are in their mind, what happens? This Ananda Swarupata, the bliss factor, that gets filtered. It's a very selective filtration. I am always aware of my existence, that I know I am. Sat Swarupata, Chit Swarupata, that I know I am, I exist, and I am aware of my existence. So Sat Swarupata, Chit Swarupata, this too never gets obscured. Even if our mind is in turmoil, I am always aware that I am. What gets obscured is that Ananda Swarupata. So whenever our desire is fulfilled, we feel happy. Why we feel happy? Because the moment the desire is fulfilled, the mind is desireless that time. Some desire was constantly tormenting me. The moment I get the object of my desire, it is desireless for the time being. The mind is calm. And the Ananda Swarupata, which is the core of our existence, that finds expression. Now, if someone through spiritual practice have attained that state where the mind is always pure, nothing is going to obscure that Ananda Swarupata. That is something which starts overwhelming his personality. And that's the thing which we find Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. Once his light feels joy and experiences the upsurge of a great current in one's chest, like the bursting of a rocket. So when we can cleanse our heart, that happiness is something which can never be compared with any happiness available in this world. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say that this is the joy, even in our Taittiriya Upanishad, that there's a chapter on this happiness. And there also they say this ultimately, the self, if you can get identified with yourself, the happiness that you can attain cannot be compared with any happiness. So why? Because that's the source of happiness. All other happiness is just a speck of it. So, as an 11-year boy, Sri Ramakrishna says that from birth, he was of that pure, that purity was something which was in his inherent nature. So for the more we are pure, the more we are at the present moment. So what actually doesn't allow us, as Sri Ramakrishna was indicating, he was passing through the paddy field and he saw something that is not mentioning here, but we know in some other context as we mentioned, that there were dark clouds in the sky, and against that, on the background of the dark cloud, suddenly some white cranes visible, were flying across it, and seeing that scenery, that contrast of that white cranes on the background of the dark clouds, suddenly he lost his consciousness. He was overwhelmed. Why it doesn't happen to us? Why it happens to Sri Ramakrishna? Because even in Buddhism they will say to be at present. That we are never at present. When we are walking down the street, something really wonderful scenery is there, but my mind is noisy. It is thinking of something which has happened in the past, or it is just imagining something which is going to happen in the future, and its mind is full of noise. It can never stay in the present. The more our mind is pure, the more the noise factor is not there, the more we are in the present. Nothing is going to disturb. And then that wonderful, the scenery and everything can be overwhelming. And that speaks of the purity. The more we can be at the present, the more we are pure, and the more this type of experiences can something which we can also experience in our life. That's why we go for excursion and all. Even after going to excursion, why we go, that we are so much tied down by our day-to-day activities, weighed down by that, I want to get relieved. And if we can really forget about it, with free mind if I go, then only I enjoy. If even after going for some trip, that all the things which weighs me down in my job, in my family, if still I am contemplating on them, I can never enjoy. I can only enjoy which if I can keep it, if I can somehow leave them. When I leave my home, I leave all those joys and all those worries at home, and then with free mind I can go. Then only we can enjoy. So this speaks of the purity. The more we are pure, the more the mind can get absorbed in the present. And that can be a very, very overwhelming experience. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So that's the mind. When the mind is pure, the lake of the mind becomes easily calm, and the Ananda Swarupata is something which is no more filtered out. That's the thing which it can become something palpably visible. Something wells up, and that's the spiritual experience which Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of. That once his light feels joy and experiences the upsurge of the great current in one's chest like the bursting of a rocket. The next day, Baburam and Ramdayal returned to Calcutta. M spent the day and the night with the master. December 1882. It was afternoon. The master was sitting in his room at Dakshineshwar with M and one or two other devotees. Several Marwari devotees arrived and saluted the master. They requested Sri Ramakrishna to give them spiritual instruction. He smiled. Master to the Marwari devotees, you see, the feeling of I and mine is the result of ignorance. But to say, O God, thou art the doer, and all this belong to thee, is a sign of knowledge. How can you say such a thing as mine? So this idea of mine, the idea of doer and enjoyer, this is the product of ignorance. So that's the thing which we find even in the Bhagavad Gita. That's the thing is mentioned. This Prakriti, it is only the nature which is working, giving me a sense of that ego. But behind that, actually the ego, there is nothing called me. It is just the nature, as we have spoken of so many times, that we have innumerable mental modules, and each mental module has a fixed stimuli-response conditioning. As per the environment, as per the circumstance in which we are, a particular module gets activated, all others are dormant. And the module which gets activated as per the circumstances, that has a fixed stimuli-response conditioning, and you will respond to the stimuli in a fixed way. But somehow the mind will be fooling us that it is I who have taken the decision. So this is the idea which we find even in the Bhagavad Gita. This Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasha Ahankara Vimuratma Kartaham iti manyate. It is the nature which is working. The guna is interacting with the gunas. The guna as the sense organ is interacting with the guna as the sense objects. And they are having their own stimulus-response conditioning. But the one who is vimura, deluded by the idea of notion of the doer, of the notion of I, ahankara, he thinks himself as the karta. So, this both, even in this Bhagavad Gita they say, but we need not think that the ignorance is something which is apart from the divine. Both the para prakriti and the apara prakriti, both are has emanated from the Lord. Both. The Lord is beyond them. So dvavimau purushau loke ksharascha evacha. Kshara and akshara. So this kshara is the thing which is constantly in a state of flow. It's changing. It's kshara. And akshara is that is indestructible. That is the kutastha, which is the core of your being. Kshara sarvani bhutani. The entire existence kshara. It is decaying. Kutastho akshara uchyate. The one who is at the core of your being, he is the akshara. That which never decays. It is as it is. And beyond this, both the kshara and akshara, is the purushottama. This uttama purushastvanya, this in the 15th chapter. Paramatmi udarita yah lokatrayam avishya vibhatyam avyaya ishvara. So the one who is beyond the kshara and akshara, beyond the para and the apara prakriti, is the purushottama. So to knowing that, now generally the question is, if I am as the core of my being, which is consciousness, that is not the doer. And the inert prakriti is not the doer. It is just happening as per the fixed stimuli response conditioning. Then who is the one who is doing? It is the one who is beyond the kshara and akshara. This is the idea in Bhagavad Gita. It's a wonderful idea. This uniqueness and through which Bhagavad Gita has actually synthesized the Sankhya and the Vedanta philosophy is the idea of this Purushottama. Through which, in Sankhya philosophy, there is the idea of this duality. There is the Prakriti and there are innumerable Purushas. The Purusha is something which is inert, is not doing anything. It is just the witness. It is a consciousness, but it is just the witness. It is not doing anything. And as long as it is witness, in its association, Prakriti becomes activated. Prakriti by itself is jada. It gets activated by being in association with the consciousness. So now the question is that the question of who is the karta? No one is the karta, we find. Even in Buddhism, that's the idea. They say there is no one is the karta. And this anomaly is resorted in Bhagavad Gita by the idea of the Purushottama. That the one who is beyond the Kshara and Akshara. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the snake which is lying idle, coiled up, is also the same snake. And the snake which is moving is also the snake. It is a sense of agency is there beyond the so-called psychophysical existence. When it is just lying coiled, it appears to be inert. It has the potentiality to express that Shakti, the emotion. So the one who is beyond this immobility as well as the mobility is the one, is the Purusha. So the God is the doer. That is Sri Ramakrishna's indication. Thou art the doer. All this belong to thee is a sign of knowledge. How can you say such a thing as mine? Nothing is mine. And then the example he's giving. The superintendent of the garden says, this is my garden. But if he is dismissed because of some misconduct, then he does not have the courage to take away even such a worthless thing as his mango wood box. So some chest he had, some small box he had. Even to take away, he doesn't have the courage. So what actually Sri Ramakrishna is indicating? That when he is dismissed, that he says it is mine, but when he is dismissed, he cannot take even a single thing. So what is the idea of this? What is this dismiss means? It means our death. Nothing else. In this life, so we think, this is my house, my family, my job, my wealth, everything mine. But when the death comes, then I have no capacity to take anything with me. So that's the idea. The superintendent of the garden says, this is my garden. But if he is dismissed because of some misconduct, then he does not have the courage to take away even such a worthless thing as his mango wood box. Anger and lust cannot be destroyed. Turn them toward God. If you must feel desire and temptation, then desire to realize God. Feel tempted by Him. Discriminate and turn the passions away from worldly objects. So, as long as we have the sense of ego, all these Shararipu are going to be 6 enemies are going to be there with us. This anger, lust also are part of the Shararipu. These are almost impossible to get rid of as long as the ego is there. They are with us. So what's the way out? Instead of trying to subjugate them, turn it towards God. If you feel desire and temptation, then desire to realize God. That if you have that desire, turn that desire towards God. Feel tempted by Him. Discriminate and turn the passions away from worldly objects. If you have to be angry with the so-called passions, worldly objects. Ishware Anurag, Vishoye Virag. Love towards God and dispassion towards all the worldly objects. That's how we can channelize our lust and anger. So this lust and anger is like a force, tremendous force. So in the olden days, previously, even now it's there, that to control the flow of the river, we used to construct dam. And then there is a heavy rain. Then at last we have to open the check gates, or the dam will just simply, they will crack, and there is going to be a flood. And now we find that most of the floods are because of those dams. So all the dams which we find were constructed some 50-60 years back. Nowadays, this dam is discouraged. Then what's the way they can control the overflow of water because of torrential rain? That instead of constructing dam, they will be irrigating some channels. They will be digging some channels canals, those canals will be channelized to the places where there is no rain. Like in India, from the Ganges, there are many canals which has been taken towards the dry arid area of Rajasthan. So when there is a heavy torrential rain, instead of trying to restrict it with a dam, it is channelized to the area which doesn't get rain. So that way, that land becomes fertile. So in our personality also, this anger and lust is like a tremendous flow. If you try to subjugate it by constructing a dam, know it for certain, to certain extent you will be able to control them. But a time will come, even we don't have the capacity to control them. It will be burst. We will be just bursting out. There will be a tremendous outrage of anger and lust within us, which can even disintegrate our personality. So what's the way out? Sublimate those emotions. Channelize them. That create some, if you have to have this love for God, try to develop some love for some sublime things. Hatred for something which is bad. And that's how the same emotions, instead of subjugating, you are sublimating them by channelizing them in some, in some direction where at present it is not irrigated, like the love for God. These are there. It is there within our psyche. If we culture, it can be developed, but we have never directed our passions towards that. So instead of subjugating, we have to sublimate them by channelizing all our passions towards that. That's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. Anger and lust cannot be destroyed. Turn them toward God. If you must feel desire and temptation, then desire to realize God. Feel tempted by Him. Discriminate and turn the passions away from worldly objects. When the elephant is about to devour a plantain tree in someone's garden, the Mahut strikes it with his iron-tipped goad. So all our passions and everything are something which, like the mad elephant, will be directing us to the sensate pleasures of life. But if we keep the God as the guiding force, God as our Mahut, He is there always in the form of our conscience to direct us in the way of life. That as just the Mahut, the way, it strikes with an iron-tipped goad to the elephant whenever it is going to feed on the vegetations of other people, others' property. It will be just striking it with that iron-tipped goad, and that's how He controls the elephant. Similarly, that the more we become this divine-centric, the more we become God-oriented, the more we have our life aligned to the spiritual core of our being, the more we will find our conscience is always awake. It will be always awake. Like that Mahut, it will be guiding us in this path of life. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating with the elephant. So if you once develop the passion for love for God and dispassion for the worldly objects, the more the God consciousness is something which is awake in you. It starts acting like as a Mahut. To give a very common example, that most of us in our life, that we all have conscience, but our conscience is something which is authoritarian. That as a small child, for something, our parents praised us. Oh, this is good. And for something, we were scolded, we were censored. And that became internalized. In our childhood, our teacher, our parents, whatever things they told is good or is bad, that got internalized, and that became our conscience. So it is based on some authority. That authority may not be there, but it has got internalized. So that is authoritarian conscience. But sometimes it doesn't work at all. Wherever there is a riot, you will find there's immediately after the riot, all the shops and the shops of the minorities have been plundered. Who have plundered? The thieves? No. It's a so-called gentleman. So just see, when the police, who keeps us moral? The police. When because of riot or some social disruption, the so-called the legal system, the police force has has got disrupted for some time, and we take the full advantage. The so-called civilized society will find is plundering. There are so many instances. What it shows, the authoritarian conscience, whenever no one is looking at us, it doesn't work. But there is another conscience, which is that God-oriented conscience, the divine-centric conscience. In the life of Swami Vivekananda, as a young boy, as a Bile, we will find that Narendranath, as a small boy, was extremely mischievous. That no scolding was of avail. His mother used to scold, the sisters will scold, and he will be just going on doing all sorts of mischievous things. Nothing could, because his conscience was not based on authority somehow. He was having tremendous force, that life force within him. But there was some sanskar with which he was born. That's why we find when he is doing all sorts of mischief, nothing can stop him. The mother says, "Oh, you are the demon of Shiva." Most probably you were with Shiva, demon of Shiva, and as you did some misdeed, that's why Shiva has thrown you. That's why you have taken birth. So this idea was something ingrained in his mind. So when the mother found that there's no way to control him, at last somehow he will get hold of Naren and pour water in his head, chanting the name of Shiva, just Shiva, 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 and he will cool down. So that's the God-oriented consciousness. Somehow that feeling was there that if you read the life of Swami Vivekananda, these ideas are wonderful. As a small child, immediately that fear used to come. Oh, as my mother says, that somehow has been thrown by Shiva, and that's why I am here. And if I continue to do mischief, I cannot go back. So the moment the mother will pour water and chant Shiva, Shiva, immediately he is to become calm. So that's the God-oriented consciousness. If somehow that type of conscience we develop, nothing can lure us in this life. The authoritarian conscience with which most of us has, that doesn't work. But if we can develop that God-oriented conscience, that Viveka established in that idea of the divinity, that if I am doing something wrong, it is not just the society which is going to punish me. If I have that idea, when the society is not going to punish me because it is not looking at me, or there is a temporary disruption in its total structure, I tend to do all sorts of illegal things, all sorts of wrong things I tend to do. But if I have the idea that my origin is the divine, this process of transmigration I am going through is because of all my sensate attachments to this life. If I cannot get rid of it, I will never get identified with my divine identity. If that's the basis of our conscience, nothing can deviate us from our right path. So that divine consciousness is the Mahut. So that's why the Mahut we have to keep as the God has to be our Mahut. Then only that conscience can work, and that alone can restrict us from all wrongdoings. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that when the elephant is about to devour a plantain tree in someone's garden, the Mahut, that's the God-oriented consciousness, conscience, God-oriented conscience. That's the Mahut, that it strikes with his iron-tipped goad. You are merchants. So why he's saying all those things? Now we will find that the Marwari devotees came, and we know that in business, people do resort to some sort of untruthfulness, wrongdoing. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. You are merchants. You know how to improve your business gradually. Some of you start with a castor oil factory. After making some money at that, you open a cloth shop. In the same way, one makes progress towards God. It may be that you go into solitude now and then and devote more time to prayer. Here he's saying something good, but the idea that we shouldn't resort to wrongdoing, that he will be mentioning in the next paragraph. So here he is saying something, and he's using an allegory with which we have to progress in spiritual life. In spiritual life, what happens, that the moment we resort to some sort of spiritual life, that a little religion helps us in a great way. How it helps us? If a person without religion has nothing to integrate himself, sometimes we find. He gets easily lured by so many things. But with the help of religion, you are regimenting your mind. With all the do's and don'ts, you have your everyday regular practices. The mind needs something to hold on. If you are not holding on to something which is sublime, it will hold on to something which is gross. So in the very preliminary level, the religion, how it helps? Dharyate iti dharma. That to hold on to something which will integrate us. And we get satisfied with that. Yes, a little meditation, little prayer, going to the temple, and just binding us with all those things helps me to integrate my life. I find beyond that, if those things are not that, my mind gets easily distracted. So I keep myself integrated to a certain extent with all those things, and that becomes the be-all and end-all of my religion. That I am regimenting myself. But Sri Ramakrishna is saying that the real purpose of religion is to realize the divine core which is within you, so that you can go beyond the process of this transmigration. You can develop the tremendous love for God. That is something which is the be-all and end-all of our human birth. As a human being, we have that uniqueness. So you shouldn't be satisfied with something which is good. That just to have an integrated life is good. But religion is not only meant for that. Have that yearning, aspiration to develop spirituality, to evolve spirituality to such an extent that you go beyond this process of transmigration. You again become identified with your spiritual identity. So that's why he's saying you are merchants. You know how to improve your business gradually. Some of you start with a castor oil factory. After making some money at that, you open a cloth shop. So what? You are gradually progressing. You are not just satisfied with that castor oil factory. Now you open a cloth shop. In the same way, one makes progress toward God. It may be that you go into solitude now and then. Now these Marwaris were devotees. But he found that what he was saying, that the religion was something just to integrate them. Nothing beyond that. For most of us it's that. So that's why he's saying that go into solitude now and then, devote more time to prayer. So that earnestness is there to go beyond this process of transmigration, to go beyond this process of transmigration to enjoy the communion with the divine. So that's the idea. Go forward. Charaiveti, charaiveti. In some other context, Sri Ramakrishna used to say a nice story, and that a woodcutter, a poor woodcutter, every day used to go to the forest to just cut the firewood, and those firewood he used to sell in the market. And that's how he used to make his living. He has to sustain himself. And one day when he was cutting wood, one brahmachari from the depth of the forest came out, and he was just passing by that woodcutter. And he told that woodcutter that, why don't you go forward? Just go forward. Just don't stop in this, just this outward fringes of this forest. Go deeper into it. So after saying this, the brahmachari left. So after a few days, this woodcutter thought that why this brahmachari told me to go to the deeper layers of the forest. Why? I just always am in the outer fringe. So he thought, let me just listen. And he went a bit deep into the forest. And then he was amazed. He found there were a lot of sandalwood trees. And then by selling the sandalwood, he became rich. And then after a few years, he thought, brahmachari never told me to stop. He told me to go forward. So why not go still deeper into the forest? As he went still deeper, he found silver mines, then gold mines, and then at last he found the diamonds. And he became extremely rich. So what's the idea? That never be satisfied. That go on. Charaiveti, charaiveti. That's the idea. That in a spiritual quest, don't take the guideposts to be the final, milestones to be the final goal. They're just the milestones. They're just the milestones. There is something still ahead of it. That until you have the spiritual realization, don't stop. So that's the idea which Sri Ramakrishna is trying to implant in the hearts of these Marwari merchants. But you must remember that nothing can be achieved except in its proper time. Some persons must pass through many experiences and perform many worldly duties before they can turn their attention to God. So they have to wait a long time. Actually, that's the thing with most of us, that we say that how that we are going through this process of transmigration. The basic idea that of this evolution which we speak of, which is in biology, which even in Vedanta, we agree to it. That we don't believe in design, that God has created human being just directly. As in Abrahamic religion, the idea of design is there. In Vedanta, that idea of design is not there. There's the idea of evolution, that we have evolved. That why that evolution happened, that the idea is somehow the consciousness got associated with the body-mind complex, and seeing its reflection in the body-mind complex, it got deluded. It took the reflection to be real. It took the echo to be the real. The idea that when I am shouting my own name standing in front of a mountain, my name is echoed back from the mountain, making me feel someone is calling me from the mountain. The same thing is happening. The conscious principle behind our body-mind complex is constantly saying, you're eternal, you're ever fulfilled. And that is reflected from the body-mind complex. As if the body-mind complex saying, I am eternal, I am ever fulfilled. And now being confused by taking the body-mind consciousness to be his reality, he tries to realize that eternity, that fulfillment through that body-mind complex, and that results in the evolution. We are in this constant, we are hearing that echo, that's a single cellular organism. It finds that a little stimuli, change of stimuli is going to kill it. But something is saying that you are eternal. And so it tries to realize that eternity through that body, and that's how the evolution process is going on. It starts conglomerating, a few cells starts conglomerating to fight with nature in a better way. Let us now have division of labor. Previously, as a single cellular organism, the single cell was doing everything. Now there's a division that you do take part of the circulation, you take part of digestion, you take part of assimilation, you take part of sending information as the nervous current, as the nerves. So at last we find this complex structure as a human being, which is made of trillions, billions and trillions of cells. Each cell is a life. But now this all conglomerates to form one life. Why? We have equipped ourselves through the process of evolution because of that delusion that I have to realize the eternity. Someone behind me is saying you're eternal. That I have to realize through this body-mind complex. And as a human being, at last, through all these experiences, as a human being, we have that faculty to realize at last that I'm already eternal. Somehow I was deluded by hearing the echo which is coming from the body-mind complex. I took the echo to be real. I took the reflection to be real. And I was aimless, I was vainly trying to realize that eternity and fulfillment through that body-mind complex, which is never possible because it is a flow. However I may try, it is never possible. But I'm already that. If I am just not deluded by the echo, I'm already that. And then the question of detachment comes, renunciation comes. When you know that you are already that, your attempt to experience the eternity and fulfillment through the body-mind complex is a vain attempt. Then that renunciation comes. So now renunciation is not something which is forced, that you are not going to renounce. Through this realization, renunciation has to come at a particular time in our process of transmigration, in this evolutionary journey. We all have started as a microbe to at last become this human being. Through this entire process of this evolution, we somehow were deluded. When this delusion starts falling off, then that renunciation comes. So it takes a long time. But you must remember that nothing can be achieved except in this proper time. So Sri Ramakrishna jokingly used to say that as a child, that time is very important. When the child, as a small child, every day it wets the bed. And every day the mother says, when will you grow? Yet every day you're just wetting the bed. And the child also feels guilty. The sense of guilt develops. Oh, every day. And one day he says, "Mother, please wake me up when I have the urge. When I have the urge, please wake me up." And the mother says, "The urge itself will wake you up, today or tomorrow. It is a matter of time." That's the example Sri Ramakrishna is giving in the gospel. So we cannot force that urge, that when the urge comes, I cannot say someone to wake me up. The time will come when automatically I will wake up. The urge will make me wake up. So it's a process of evolution. And that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. Some person must pass through many experiences and perform many worldly duties before they can turn their attention to God. So they have to wait a long time. If an abscess is lanced before it is soft, the result is not good. The surgeon makes the opening when it is soft and has come to a head. So that's the example. If there's an abscess, there is a scab which has grown over the wound, and you forcefully remove it. It's not good. You will lacerate. The wound will become still more lacerated. You will be injuring yourself. So you know that when an abscess is ripe enough, you go to the doctor, he says, "No, it is not yet ripe. It has the proper time, it is ripe." Then only it will operate on it. And then only he will apply the medication. So that's the thing, everything has its proper time. So if the attachment is too strong, even the guru will say, "No, it's not the time for you." So it's not a question of bias, that the guru will be just biased by having more compassion towards someone, not compassion towards other. If he realizes that someone is having very strong attachment, he has to go through the experiences of life to develop some sort of an attachment. Then only, like a surgeon, he can make that opening. He has ripened through the experiences of life, and then only that he can come to of any help or evil. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that everything has a time. If an abscess is lanced before it is soft, the result is not good. The surgeon makes the opening when it is soft and has come to a head. Once a child, now that example is there, once a child said to its mother, "Mother, I am going to sleep now. Please wake me up when I feel the call of nature." "My child," said the mother, "when it is time for that, you will wake up yourself. I shan't have to wake you." So everything has its proper time. So this that in Sanskrit we say that the process of education can be divided into 4 parts. What's that? That acharyat padam adhyet, padam shishya samedhaya, padam sabrahmacharibhya, padam kala kramena cha. That our entire process of education can be divided into 4 parts. The first quarter is acharyat, from your teacher, from your parents as a teacher, or your school as a teacher, whatever they teach. They cannot teach us all. Just 1/4 from their instruction comes. And then another 1/4 from where it comes. Padam shishya samedhaya. The students who are hearing. Now they all are not same way focused. Their intelligence is not same. Those who are more intelligent, those who are more focused, they can gather more knowledge. The same teacher is teaching in the class. All the students are not learning the same way. Those who are more focused, those who are more intelligent, they learn more. So another 1/4 comes from the student's intelligence. First is Acharya, second is Shishya. Acharyat padam adhyat, padam shishya samedhaya. The next 1/4, the third quarter, what is that? Padam sabrahmacharibhya. Through discussion, the peer groups, sabrahmacharibhya, in the school. Nowadays you will find, previously all the students used to face the teacher. When I went to some school here in New South Wales, there was some class on religion, and I was requested to take a few of those classes, and I was surprised because in India I never saw. In India it's the students always facing the teacher, and here I went and saw it's all round tables. The students are all sitting around the table, and the teacher, they're not facing the teacher, they're all facing each other. So the idea is that what the teacher is teaching, the students have to have peer groups and have some discussion, and that clears many doubt. So something I have understood well, something you have understood well, when we discuss, then both the understanding of both the students become enriched. So that is padam sabrahmacharibhya, through discussions, through constant interrogation, discussion, questioning, answering. That way another 1/4 gets clear. The last 1/4 is very important. That everything in life, that way you cannot learn. Something is needed with proper time, with the seasoning of time you learn. Padam kala kramena cha. So it's very important. So that's why even when this parents used to come to our schools and say that this child doesn't listen, and we used to say, don't get fed up. It won't listen, but what you have to say, you go on saying. Because what you are saying, he cannot simply brush off. The child somehow is registering in his mind with the experience of life. As he grows up, suddenly he will be in certain situation where he has to meet certain situation with certain attitude, and then he will find, yes, my father used to say me this thing, my mother used to say me this thing, it will work. So it takes time. It has to, through the experience of life, you have to learn so many things to get seasoned, to understand so many things. So this spirituality is also something which takes time. Through certain experiences, unless and until we have developed to certain extent detachment, a liking for this sublime way of life, no one can force spirituality on us. So that's why he's saying it's a matter of time. The Marwari devotees generally brought offerings of fruit, candy and other sweets for the master. Oh, it's already time, I haven't seen. Sorry. But Sri Ramakrishna could hardly eat them. He would say they earned their money by falsehood. I can't eat their offering. So I will take from this portion again in the next class. So with this, this chapter, a little more portion is remaining. So we will be finishing off again in the next class. So thank you all. Namaskars. With this, we conclude our class today.